I don't even know where to begin, but maybe starting at the point where the air between us first changed makes sense. My wife, Isabella, and I had been married for 7 years. We weren't perfect, but we laughed a lot, made plans for the future, and, at least on the surface, had what I thought was a solid foundation. She was fiery, sharp-tongued at times, but I always chalked it up to her personality. It was part of what made her exciting when we first met. But over the last few months, things had started to feel off. It was subtle at first. She used to text me little updates during the day, funny memes, or just a quick love you. That slowly faded until her phone seemed glued to her hand, yet none of those messages were coming my way. Date nights that used to be sacred turned into her being too tired or claiming she had plans with her friends I'd never met. I remember one night, she came home late, smelling faintly of cologne that definitely wasn't mine. When I asked, she actually laughed in my face, and said I was paranoid. I brushed it off, telling myself I was overthinking. But in the back of my mind, a quiet voice had already started whispering that something was very, very wrong. The moment that really dug into my gut happened on a Sunday morning. Isabella was in the shower, and her phone lit up on the nightstand. Normally, I don't snoop. I've always believed that trust means not needing to. But the name that flashed across the screen wasn't one I recognized. It was just saved as Daniel G., and the preview of the message read, "Last night was amazing, can't stop thinking about you." I froze. My stomach dropped like I'd just missed a step on the stairs. My hands actually started shaking. For a few seconds, I tried convincing myself that maybe it was a friend joking around, or maybe even some weird spam. But deep down, I knew. Nobody texts their friend at 9 in the morning about last night being amazing. When she came out wrapped in her towel, I must have looked like I'd seen a ghost. She tilted her head, gave me that sharp little smirk, and asked why I was staring at her like that. I didn't say anything then, I just muttered that I wasn't feeling well. But from that moment on, I knew the whisper in my head had turned into a scream. A few days later, the universe handed me confirmation I didn't even ask for. Isabella had left her laptop open on the kitchen counter while she went upstairs to grab something. I wasn't planning to look, but when the screen lit up, I saw her email. And there it was, a thread between her and Daniel. One line stood out like a knife through my chest: "I hate having to sneak around, but being with you is worth it." I swear my heart actually pounded in my ears. I read the words over and over, hoping I was hallucinating. Then I noticed the details: hotel bookings under her name, all on nights she had told me she was at girls' night. I even saw one for the upcoming weekend. She came downstairs at that exact moment, saw me standing there with her laptop open, and her face shifted instantly. Not shock, not guilt, just pure anger, like I was the one who had crossed the line. "Why are you going through my stuff?" she snapped. Her voice was sharp, dripping with indignation. No apology, no stumble, just instant blame shifting. I didn't even have the strength to answer. I just shut the laptop and walked out of the kitchen, my hands clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. That night I couldn't hold it in anymore. My chest felt like it was caving in, so when Isabella walked into the bedroom, scrolling on her phone like nothing was wrong, I finally said it: "Who is Daniel?" She didn't even look up right away. Just a long pause, then this exaggerated sigh. "Oh my God, are we really doing this?" she said, rolling her eyes. I told her I had seen the emails. Her face didn't crumble the way I thought it might. Instead, she launched into a tirade about how I had violated her privacy, how I was controlling and insecure. She called me paranoid, delusional, even pathetic. When I pressed, her story shifted every few minutes. First Daniel was just a colleague she confided in, then he was some old friend going through a hard time, and then finally, she snapped and admitted they'd hooked up a couple of times but tried to paint it as no big deal. I lost it. My voice cracked as I asked how she could stand there and minimize betraying me like that. She crossed her arms, smirking, and said, "Maybe if you were more of a man, I wouldn't need someone else." That line, it felt like she'd stabbed me clean through. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of the bed while she snored beside me, like nothing had happened, like she hadn't just blown our entire marriage to pieces with one sentence. My mind replayed her words on a loop: "Maybe if you were more of a man." The next morning, I tried to talk to her again, hoping maybe she'd wake up remorseful or at least willing to explain herself. Instead, she got defensive all over again. She said I was overreacting, that what she did wasn't even real cheating because it wasn't emotional. Then in the same breath, she accused me of being too boring, too predictable, too focused on work. It was like she had a whole arsenal of excuses ready to fire. Every time I called her out, she twisted it back on me, making me feel like I was the one who had caused this. She even laughed when I asked if she was planning to stop seeing him. "Why should I?" she said. "It's not like you're going anywhere." That line snapped something inside me. For the first time, I realized she wasn't scared of losing me. She was confident she could treat me like dirt, and I'd still be standing there, waiting for scraps. The following week was hell. Every time Isabella's phone buzzed, my stomach twisted. She didn't even bother to hide it anymore, stepping into the hallway to whisper, smirking when she caught me looking. It was like she enjoyed watching me unravel. One night, I finally broke. She was getting dressed up, saying she was going out with friends. I asked her straight up if she was meeting Daniel. She shot me a look colder than ice and said, "And if I am? What are you going to do about it?" That was it. Something inside me snapped. I told her I couldn't live like this anymore, that if she wanted him, she could have him, but she'd lose me. She laughed in my face. Laughed. Said I was being dramatic, that no one would believe I could do better than her anyway. That night, I packed a bag and drove to my brother Marcus's house. I didn't even tell her where I was going. Sitting on his couch, with my life in shambles, I realized the marriage I thought I had was already gone. 2 days after I left, my phone rang while I was sitting at Marcus's kitchen table, staring into a cup of cold coffee. It was an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something in me said to pick up. A man's voice came through, shaky and low. "Is this Adrian?" "Yes," I said cautiously. "This is Daniel." I swear the room spun. My brother looked at me, eyebrows raised, as I tightened my grip on the phone. Daniel said he hadn't meant for things to go this far. He didn't know Isabella was married at first, and when he did find out, she told him we were separated, that I was some clingy ex who couldn't let go. Hearing that made my blood boil. My wife, painting me as some pathetic loser while she paraded around with him. Then Daniel said something that knocked the wind out of me. She told me last night she was moving in with me. I don't think she's telling either of us the truth. It was like the floor opened beneath me. Not only was she lying to me, she was lying to him, too. After that call, I couldn't sit still. My hands shook the whole drive back to the house. Marcus wanted to come with me, but I needed to face Isabella alone. My chest was pounding with a mix of rage and dread. When I walked in, the house smelled like her perfume, thick and heavy, and there were 2 glasses of wine on the counter. My gut told me Daniel had probably just left. She came down the stairs in a silky robe, smirking like she'd been waiting for me. "Oh look," she said, "the runaway husband returns." I didn't waste time. I told her I'd spoken to Daniel, that I knew she was lying to both of us. For the first time, her mask cracked. Her eyes widened for a second before she rolled them and muttered, "God, he wasn't supposed to call you." Then she tried to spin it again, said Daniel was obsessed with her, that he was misinterpreting things, that she never really promised to move in with him. But the way she avoided my eyes told me everything. The final straw was when she sneered, "You wouldn't survive a week without me." That was the moment I knew, this wasn't my wife anymore. This was someone I didn't recognize. That night was the first time I truly saw Isabella for who she had become. Every word out of her mouth was a lie, twisted to make me doubt myself. She sat there on the couch, legs crossed, sipping her wine like it was just another Tuesday, while my entire world burned. I asked her, point blank, if she loves Daniel. She laughed a cruel, bitter laugh and said, "I don't love him. But he makes me feel alive." "When was the last time you did that?" It felt like she had reached inside my chest and crushed my heart with her bare hands. I realized then that there was no version of this where trust could ever be rebuilt. She hadn't just broken it, she had stomped on it, mocked it, and thrown the pieces in my face. Even worse, I started questioning myself. Had I been blind all these years? Had she always been capable of this? My head spun with memories, times she came home late, times she brushed off my questions with sharp sarcasm, times I thought I was just being insecure. Now it all felt like a cruel joke. And I was the punchline. The breaking point came 3 days later. I'd been staying at Marcus's place, trying to breathe, trying to think. Out of nowhere, Isabella showed up uninvited, storming into his living room like she owned the place. She had that smug expression plastered on her face, the one that always made me feel small. She said, "Adrian, stop embarrassing yourself. Come home. We both know you're not going to leave me." I stared at her in disbelief. After everything, the lies, the cheating, the humiliation, she still thought she had me wrapped around her finger. When I didn't answer right away, she sneered at my brother and said, "Don't fill his head with stupid ideas. He needs me. Always has." That was it. The last straw. I stood up, and for the first time in years, I felt steady. I told her I was done. No more pretending, no more excuses, no more taking her poison like medicine. Her face went pale for a second, then twisted into rage. She spat out, "Fine. You'll come crawling back when you realize no one else will want you." She slammed the door on her way out, but this time, her words didn't sink into me like knives. They slid right off. I finally knew the truth. I deserved better. The house felt like a battlefield after she left. Clothes scattered, memories shattered, and silence heavier than anything I'd ever known. I went back there the next day, not to reconcile, but to collect my things. Walking through the rooms, it felt like I was trespassing in a life that no longer belonged to me. Every photo of us smiled down from the walls like ghosts mocking me. Our wedding picture, her in that white dress with her eyes shining, it didn't feel real anymore. It felt staged, like I had been the only one who believed in the story. She hadn't even tried to hide the mess. There were receipts on the counter from dinners for two, a tie that wasn't mine draped over a chair. My chest tightened, but I kept moving. I grabbed what I needed: clothes, my laptop, some books. She came in halfway through, leaning against the doorway, arms folded. "So that's it? You're really leaving?" she asked, her tone dripping with fake disbelief. "Yes," I said. My voice didn't shake this time. She rolled her eyes, muttered something under her breath about me being weak, and walked away. But I didn't care anymore. For the first time, I felt like I was walking towards something instead of running from it. The first weeks after leaving felt like walking through fog. I'd wake up at Marcus's house and for a split second, forget everything. Then it would hit me all over again: the betrayal, the lies, the laughter in my face when I begged her for the truth. Nights were the hardest. I'd lie awake replaying every fight, every moment she brushed me off with sarcasm, every time I ignored my gut telling me something was wrong. Sleep didn't come easy, and when it did, it brought nightmares, visions of her with Daniel, of her words echoing in my head, "Maybe if you were more of a man." I kept asking myself how someone I loved so deeply could turn so cold, so cruel. Friends reached out, offering advice, but their words bounced off me. People said it would get easier, that I'd find peace, but in those days, it felt like I was drowning. The only thing that kept me from going under completely was Marcus. He never judged me, never rushed me. He just sat with me in silence, letting me grieve the death of the life I thought I had. One morning, about a month after everything blew up, I woke up and realized I hadn't thought about Isabella the night before. It shocked me. For weeks, she had consumed every second of my mind, but that night my dreams had been empty of her. It was the smallest thing, but it felt like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. I went for a walk, something I hadn't done in ages, and noticed how different the world looked without the constant weight pressing on my chest. The leaves on the trees, the sound of kids playing down the street, it all felt sharper, more alive. For the first time, I wasn't just existing, I was noticing. Later that day, Daniel actually texted me again. He said he'd cut ties with her too, after realizing she had been stringing him along with the same lies she told me. Part of me wanted to rage at him, but another part just felt pity. He was just another pawn in her game. That was the moment I understood something important: her betrayal said more about who she was than about who I was. And I wasn't going to let her poison define me anymore. It wasn't a single dramatic moment that pushed me to rebuild, it was a series of quiet choices. One day, I boxed up the last of Isabella's things and left them at her mother's house without a word. Another day, I changed the locks on what was once our home. Each action felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. I started therapy, something I never thought I'd do. Sitting in that office, I poured out everything, the anger, the shame, the humiliation. My therapist looked at me and said, "You're grieving, not just her, but the version of yourself you lost in that relationship." And for the first time, I allowed myself to cry without holding back. I also began reconnecting with friends I had unintentionally pushed away while trying to hold my marriage together. Dinners, long talks, laughter I hadn't heard in years, they reminded me of the man I was before Isabella's lies chipped away at me. The decision to rebuild wasn't about erasing what happened. It was about accepting the wreckage and choosing to build something stronger on top of it. Something that belonged to me, not to the lies she fed me. Looking back now, the whole ordeal feels like living in a nightmare I finally woke up from. There are days when the anger still creeps in, when I remember Isabella's smirk, her lies, the way she laughed as if my pain was entertainment. But those days don't control me anymore. I've realized that betrayal doesn't define me. What defines me is how I chose to respond. I could have stayed in the ruins, clinging to a woman who delighted in breaking me. Instead, I walked away, bruised but still standing. That, to me, is strength. If there's one thing I'd tell anyone reading this who suspects they're in a similar situation, it's this: trust your gut. Don't let someone convince you that your instincts are paranoia. And most importantly, never let anyone convince you that you are less than you are. I lost my wife, but I found my self-respect. And in the long run, that's worth more than any hollow marriage built on lies.